Thank you for joining the latest circuit breaker training module, this one on claiming one-to-one services using IPAs. My name's Shannon Scully from the Office of District and School Finance, and I appreciate you joining. This module is going to cover guidelines for claiming individual one-to-one services for students at approved programs. And then I'm going to go into a demonstration of how to do that right within our online claiming system. This slide shows you a screenshot of what this will look like within the claim system. So when you go to the placement page to create a placement for an individual student, there's a number of different placement types from which you can choose. And the one we're covering in this module today is for one-to-one services, or IPAs. So when a student is attending a private approved program and paying tuition at that school, you can claim those expenses for tuition. But additionally, if the student is receiving one-to-one services or hourly services on top of that tuition, you can also claim those expenses. To do that, it requires you get authorization from OSD for those expenses if the cost is more than $20 per hour. So you'll initiate a request for approval through the OSD website, and there's a link there for how to do that. You'll fill out an application about what the services are that you're providing, the student, the school they attended, and additional information. Pass that along to OSD. They'll take a look at your application, and if approved, send you back an IPA, which is an individual pricing authorization for that student. And that IPA allows you to claim those expenses on your circuit breaker claim. It will specify not just the student and the school they're attending, but also the approved hourly rate that you can claim and a total cost that you could claim for the entire school year. If the one-to-one services cost $20 or less per hour, you do not need to go through that process. Instead, you can fill out a self-authorized IPA in the claim system, and that will be one of the examples that we walk through. To claim, it's very important that when you're creating your placement in the claim system, that the program code that you're using in the placement matches exactly the program code that was approved through the OSD IPA process. That code's based on DESI standards and should be 8 digits. And I'll walk into an example of how to find that code and to make sure that you're claiming using the right code that matches your approval. You'll also be shown where in the claim system you can take a look on a report and see all of the authorizations that have been issued for your district. So there's a My Authorizations Report, and that will show all of the approved IPAs that have come through for your district. And each IPA that you want to claim, those expenses need to have the IPA associated with it. So the placement needs to have the specific IPA, the authorization associated with it, in order for you to submit those one-to-one expenses and have them included in your claim. So this slide shows you an example of a My Authorization report. You'll note that it has a list of all of the IPAs, and it will also have all of the ISPs that you have been provided, your district's been provided as approved through OSD. It has a number of different fields and information, and the first thing that I'm going to show you when I transition over into the demonstration now is where to find this report for your district in the claim system. So I'm transitioning into the claim system. This is what it will look like when you first log in, and you'll see what's available to you for your districts. We're using the fake district Pawnee for our training examples. If I go into Pawnee, the first screen here has a caret in the upper right-hand corner. And if I click on that down caret, it brings up a number of reports. And the first one that's listed here is called My Authorizations. When I click on that, it's going to open a new window with that report in it. I'll show you what that looks like. So a new tab, a new browser tab has been opened. And here lists all of the authorizations that have come through for our fake district Pawnee. You'll see that the student's name is listed, they're SACID, and when you look over here, the ones that have hourly rate listed are IPAs. So these are the rates the hourly rate that has been approved by OSD, along with annual rates, the dates that have been approved for start and end of service, and other information. So if I, for example, the first example that I'm going to give you is to show you how to claim expenses for a student named Roman Anthony, who is attending the Kennedy Day School program. So I see Roman here in the list. And you'll also note in this column is an authorization name that takes the form of an A and a dash and then 8 digits. If you click on that, it gives you some additional information about that authorization. So if I click in there, again, I'll see that our district is Pawnee, the student is Roman Anthony. This is the total amount that has been authorized for the year. It has the rate, the hourly rate that has been authorized, dates of service that have been authorized. And I want to point out that it also has the program here at the bottom. If you hover over this program, or if you click on it, but here I'll show you what happens when you hover over it, the program code will appear. So this 8-digit program code needs to match the program that you'll be claiming when you create the placement. So you'll see it here, you'll see that it ends in 101, and so I'm going to make sure that that matches when I create the placement. I'm just going to click back so we can go back to the full My Authorizations report. But then I'm going to go over into the claim on this other tab that we have open and show you how to claim these expenses for Roman Anthony. I'll go into the Pawnee claim and see the list of students that have been added to the claim. I'm going to find Roman Anthony and click on his SACID. And when I go over to placements, you'll see in this training example, there's already a placement that has been added for Roman's tuition at the Kennedy Day School. You see that he's there for 200 days with a total cost of $133,788. That's the tuition. So we want to add the one-to-one services that he's also receiving at that school. So I'll click on the one-to-one services IPA placement type and click next. And on the next screen, I'll need to enter specific information about what we paid, what Pawnee paid for those services. The first thing you'll notice is that you need to enter a program name. There's a number of ways to make sure that you're selecting the Kennedy Day School program. So there's a number of ways to find it. You could scroll through this list until you hit the K's and look for it that way. That might be time consuming. A new feature that we've introduced is that you can just start typing the name of the program and see if it appears, what appears. So as you're typing, it is dynamically determining any programs that match the term that's in there. So you see I've entered KE, and what's highlighted below is any program that has the letters KE in its name. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle or the beginning of the name. If it's in there, it appears. So I'll keep typing, and KEN is all I needed, and there pops up the Kennedy Day School program. And I'll look at the end here and I'll verify that it ends in the 101. So this is the program code 503-70101 is the appropriate program. And that matches the authorization that I received for these services. So I'll select that and then go on to enter the rest of the information required, which includes the start date of the services, that it is a day program. And here's where I'll enter the hourly rate that I paid. So I was billed for $30.85 an hour. And looking at my bills, a total of 1,200 hours. So that's what I need to enter there, and then I'll hit next. And what it's doing now is searching the system to see if it can find an approved authorization for those expenses that I've entered, and it did. So as you see here, it says, please select an authorization record from the table below that corresponds with the student's placement. So this is what it found. It found an IPA for Roman Anthony at a cost of $30.85 and the total annual cost of $37,020. That matches what I paid. So I'm going to click the box next to Roman's name. That will do the association, which is a required step to be able to submit these expenses with the claim, and then I'm going to hit next. And there you go. It tells me here that my placement has been created and gives me some details. I'll hit next here. And importantly, you do not see it at the bottom because you need to reload the page for the most recently created placement to appear. So I'm just going to go back up to the top. I'm going to reload the page, and I will then see the one-to-one services or IPA placement has now been added in addition to the tuition placement that we saw earlier. So I'm going to go back to the front page of the claim and again find the student list. And the next example that I'm going to give you for adding costs is for a student called Marcelo Mayer. So I'm going to click on Marcelo Mayer SACID and go take a look at the placements that already exist for Marcelo. And there's one. The student is attending Melmark New England in the Melmark residential program. But I also have one-to-one services for Marcelo. So I'm going to go over to the other tab and look at the My Authorizations report to find that. And here it is, Marcelo Mayer at New England, Melmark New England, the residential program, and is receiving services at $41.51 an hour. And the total for the year that has been authorized is $49,812 per year. If you divide the total for the year divided by the hourly rate, that works out to 1,200 hours. So I know that 1,200 hours have been authorized for Marcelo at this rate. However, when I look at my bills, I realize that Marcelo actually only received and we were only charged for 900 hours, which is less than the number of hours that had been approved for these services. So I'm going to show you what happens when you don't have an IPA that matches exactly, but that IPA is approved for more than you actually paid. So in this example, I'm going to, again, we're going to add one-to-one services IPA and hit next. And the program, again, was Melmark Residential. So I could either type in Melmark, which brings up multiple answers, or I could also do a search by the program code. So I know the program code is 506, 50102. And there it is. So you can search by name or by code. So I'll click on that. The name and the code match what I paid and match what's on the authorization. So that's good. Now the authorization began on September 1st, which matches the tuition. However, the student did not actually begin to receive these services until November. So I'm going to enter the date that the services began and the date for which we began to be billed. And that ran through the end of the year. The placement type, it's a residential program. And again, I'm going to please enter the rates I actually paid. So what did I pay? I paid $41.51 per hour. And the total number of hours we were billed for was 900. So again, we were authorized for 1,200, but the student only received and we only paid for 900 hours. So let's see what happens in this situation. So I'm going to hit next. And it's going to search to see if it finds an IPA that can be associated with this placement, and it did. So here it is, Marcelo, $41.51 per hour. And I'm going to, again, click the button here next to his name and say, yes, I would like to associate this IPA with this placement, and hit next. Now, here's where it's a little different than our prior example. In this example, because the rates do not match the authorization, specifically the annual rate did not match what was authorized for the entire year, it's asking me to please provide an explanation. So I'll do that here in the comment. This student received fewer hours of services than were authorized. That information will be relayed with your claim, and our team will review that once it's submitted. So I will hit next now that I've added a comment. And now it tells me my placement has been created. I'll hit next. And again, we see the tuition at the bottom, but I need to hit reload on the page in order for the latest placement to appear. And when I hit reload, there it is. So now we see the one-to-one services added to Marcelo's placement. I'm going to go back to the front page of the Pawnee claim. And I'm going to go and look at the student list. And I see that there's a student down here in my next example that does not have an OSD authorization associated with one of their placements. I happen to know that, but I'm going to show you how to diagnose that problem. So I see in the issue status, there's a red triangle for the student Trevor Story, and I'm going to wonder why. What is the issue there? If you go up to this top toolbar here, you see next to the student add students indicator, there's a tab called validations. That's going to tell me what has happened in the situations where there are red issue status items. So if I click on that, in here it tells me that student Trevor Story has an error because there's a missing OSD authorization. And it goes further to tell me what the resolution would be. So it's telling me that I need to associate the OSD authorization for these expenses to the placement. And it tells me that the expenses cannot be submitted without a valid authorization associated with them. So I'm going to fix that now. So I could do a number of things. You see that in addition to telling me what the problem is and how to solve it, it gives me a link directly to how to get into that placement. So I could click there and go into the placement. Or I could again go back to the student list. I could go down to the SACIT and pick Trevor's SACIT. Here it is also telling me I have an issue, and I want to figure out which placement is that issue on. I can go into placements, and I'll see it there. So this is the same number, same placement number, and same link that I could have gone to right through that validations tab. But I also wanted to just show you how to get here the longer way. So what I want to do is clear this issue status by associating an IPA with this placement. I'll do that by going into the placement. And I want to show you two things on the placement detail page. So you know you're in the placement, and here's the details. Number one, the issue status again appears at the top as red. The second thing I want to show you is that if you scroll down to about the middle of the page, here where the OSD authorizations are, it does not have an authorization number specified. Nothing's listed there. I'm going to continue down to the bottom of the page, which is where you'll see if there are any authorizations that are now available that had not been available when you created the placement that you might want to associate it with. And there's one there. So in this scenario, perhaps you added the one-to-one expenses in a placement, but the OSD approval had not yet come through. Once the approval had come through, you'll scroll to the bottom of this page to see if it's there, and here we find it. And when it's there, you'll click on the radio button next to the authorization number and click Finish, and that will associate the authorization with this placement. Once I've done that, I'm going to scroll back up and note two things. Number one, the issue status has changed from red to green. And second, if you go to the middle of the page under OSD authorization, you now see an authorization number of the authorization that has been associated with this placement. And when you go back into the student claim and take a look at all of the placements for Trevor, now both of them have green check marks. So the OSD authorization has been associated with the one-to-one services costs, and you'll be able to submit those with your claim. The final example that I want to walk through is what to do if you want to claim one-to-one expenses that cost $20 or less per hour. So for that, I'm going to go into the student Romy Gonzalez, who is here. And Romy, if I look at the placements, we already have put in a placement for Romy at JRI Granite Academy for tuition. He does have one IPA placement, but he also has an additional one for $20 an hour that we are going to need to add. So I'm going to click on One-to-One Services IPA and hit Next. And I'm going to specify the program that Romy is attending. So again, the student is at JRI. There's a number of different JRIs. So you see they're being narrowed down as I type in JRI. And this one is for the Granite Academy Day program. And the program code ends in 101. So I'm going to go down here. This is it, 506-10101. Click on that. I'm going to put in the start date for the services that are being delivered. And for this, we'll say December 1st, 2025. And let's say that they were only partial leap year. So these services only went through April 1st, 2026. The school is a day program. Now the hourly rate of these services, let's just make something up and say that they were $10 an hour. And that in total, he had 100 hours. I'm going to hit next. On this next screen, I need to enter information. So again, the hourly cost was $10 and the total cost was $1,000. And they were for, let's say, an other service, and it was assistance from a tutor per the IEP. Over here it says you need to certify that this is accurate. So over here it says an authorized representative of the above agency, which is listed as Pawnee, Local Education Authorities Pawnee, certify that the information contained herein, including any information attached, is correct and in accordance with the student's IEP. So I'm certifying that by the checking there, and I'm putting in my initials. And I will hit next. And again, reload the page, and that additional $1,000 of one-to-one services will appear for this student. And there you go, right here at the bottom. So this concludes the examples that I wanted to walk through with respect to claiming one-to-one services through IPAs. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions about claiming IPAs or any other aspect of the claim system, please be sure to reach out to your circuit breaker liaison. We would appreciate a chance to help and make sure that your claiming is accurate. Thanks very much.